So that'll wrap it up for that. And now we're going to get to a little bit of the fun part. We mentioned we'll be doing our own mock draft, but got to react to, I won't call him the king of mock drafts, but one of the more, I feel like a lot of people know about Mel Kiper and his mock drafts. Fortunately for me, I have Disney Plus, whatever, so I can get the ESPN Plus because now it's where his mock drafts are. So we're going to react a little bit to it. So I'm just say for 1, 2, 3, no surprise here, John. It's the usual. Lawrence at 1, Zach Wilson the Jets at 2, Mac Jones at 3. He does have a trade, Miami trading up at 4 to get Kyle Pitts with the Dolphins. Now, personally, I don't, unless he falls to him, I don't think they should do that. But they would do that just because tough to pick a tight end top 5, and as good as Pitts is, and 2, they already have a good tight end. They have Gesicki, and they have your boy Smythe, who I know he's not a superstar, but he's a pretty good backup tight end. That's a two solid set of 2 tight ends. I feel like there'd be other needs that the Dolphins could get. But any thoughts in regards to that, real quick?
Well, first off, I don't have the draft in front of me, so I'm
yeah,
just going based off everything you say.
I'm just reading off what it is. Sorry.
Yeah. So just for clarification, so everyone knows. Anyway, top 3, like you said, not a lot of surprise there. The Kyle Pitts thing to me though is a little interesting because I at this point I'm convinced either the Falcons stay put or a team is going to trade up to take a quarterback. I don't know who that team would be. I mean, there's been rumors that the Patriots are talking to them. There's plenty of other teams who could potentially be interested in going out and getting a quarterback. I know that Washington, they're still a team that there's not a lot of talk or rumors there, but they have Fitzpatrick, they have Heineke, they have Kyle Allen. But is anybody really sold on any of those guys? If Justin Fields or Trey Lance, if one of them or even Mac Jones is at 4 and they're sold on any of those guys, I don't know. This could be the year they trade up and go for one because at some point they're going to have to get a quarterback. Because personally, I don't think that Heineke or Kyle Allen are really going to be your franchise guys. And Fitzpatrick, we know he's sort of a 1-year rental. So yeah, I'm convinced that at number 4, a team's probably going to trade up to get a QB. And also, I think there's too big of a chance that Pitts is there at 6 for me to really convince myself that Miami would trade up. They traded down and then traded up again. It would just feel weird to then trade up another time. But if they're that sold on Pitts and they believe that the Bengals would actually take him, you got to do what you got to do. But like I said, I don't think they would do that. Also, like you mentioned, I think they have a solid tight end room. I don't think it's a weakness by any means. I think Gesicki, he's probably a top 10 tight end in the league,
For sure.
which isn't saying a ton because tight end's not a super deep position, but he's reliable. He's a solid starter. Like he's gonna make really good plays too. He made some really ridiculous catches last year. So they have a solid tight end room. So adding Kyle Pitts to me doesn't necessarily seem like a huge upgrade. And another point is that I feel like they'd be comfortable with like a Jamar Chase or a Devontae Smith or somebody like a receiver if they wanted to go skill position. So I don't think Miami trades up, but I wouldn't be shocked if Kyle Pitts goes 4. Maybe Atlanta does it. I pray that Dallas doesn't do it. There's talks that they will because they have 10 picks, which is like tied for second with a bunch of teams, including your Packers. Like we all have 10 picks. And so the Cowboys would package a few to go get Kyle Pitts. We don't need him. Well, I mean, we could use him. Like he's obviously an upgrade, but I don't think he makes our offense that much better, just because how much talent we have. So, yeah, like I said, I'm convinced the quarterback goes 4. So I disagree with that pick, but I don't think it's crazy for that to happen.
Yeah. So yeah, I would agree. I just don't think. Once again, like I said, just top 5 pick is just it's tough to get a tight end for the top 5, especially with all the other guys you mentioned in this class. I mean, a team like Miami could really do whatever they want. They could get a wide. They probably should get a wide receiver, and they could probably get their wide receiver at 6. So we'll see what they do there. But anyways, going on down. Number 5, he has Penei Sewell, tackle Oregon. We already kind of brushed on that, and I think we both agree with that. Protect Joe Burrow, and then you'll have him at left tackle, Jordan Williams, who I really think should be a guard, but they'll probably play at right tackle. And you already have the framework of a solid line because you have weapons. You have Joe Mixon. You have these receivers. You drafted a receiver on top of the second last year, and T. Higgins
T.
and
Higgins.
Tyler
Yep.
Boyd's solid. So y- and you can still get what you could do the same thing. You can get probably still get a really good receiver at the top of the second round this year. So I don't
Yep.
think there's a bigger need at tackle than there is elsewhere. But anyways, because of the trade, he has the Falcons at 6, getting Trey Lance, which I think is interesting. But I think if I wouldn't go Lance once again, I think you already know how I feel about him. It would just be too high of a pick for a raw prospect. I could see uh, where Justin Fields would go here, to Atlanta. But once again, that's tough because Atlanta's such an enigma, man. Like, are they going to run it? Are they comfortable? Are they going to get a pick that helps them right now and run it again with Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, because they didn't get rid of them? I mean, if so, I would say they go. This might be where a cornerback goes or a defensive end goes because we've talked about how that defense is so top heavy, and now they lost Keanu Neal, so it's just Deion Jones and Grady Jarrett. But then again, that's the tough part for me because like they've already drafted, they released McKinley, who was their first round defensive end draft pick a couple of years ago, was supposed to help them out. It's like, do you really want to invest in that position again? Because if you miss again, like so. Any thoughts in regards to what the heck the Falcons are going to do at 4 or at 6 here with Trey Lance apparently?
Um, in this hypothetical scenario, if they do get a trade from Miami, absolutely take this because number one, they're getting more picks, and
Yeah,
also if you want a quarterback, Miami's not going to take one, and
Bengals are going to
obviously the
take one.
Bengals are not going to take one. So, 100% do that if that's what their plan is. But once again, I don't think this happens. I could see Trey Lance going there for the simple fact that they're a unique situation to where they're not. I don't feel like they're good enough to get like one piece like a Nick Bosa with the Niners, where like one off season is going to radically change what happens, especially since they play in a division with the Saints, with the Buccaneers. Like
And the
the Panthers
Panthers.
are on the rise. Like it's a tough thing to do for that team. So Trey Lance is interesting because you still have Matt Ryan, so Lance doesn't have to start right away, and he's a very raw prospect, but at the same time, I mean, I don't know if I said this on the pod at some other time or we were talking with someone, but the rationale behind the Falcons is if you're going to take a quarterback or you plan to move on from Matt Ryan, in my opinion, within the next like 2 to 3 years, I think you go QB because how often are you going to be this bad to get this high of a draft pick and you don't have to trade additional assets to get a quarterback? And also, how many quarterback classes are going to have this many guys like a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance that some teams are comfortable taking in the top five? That's just not realistically always going to happen. So if they can think ahead within the next 2 years, do we feel comfortable moving on from Matt Ryan? Is that our plan? Then I think you go quarterback. Personally, I'd go Fields because I think even if he has to sit on the bench for a year, that should really only help him because he's learning from Matt Ryan, who's been an MVP in this league. Um, so, but like I said, part of me believes I could see Lance for the simple fact that I think a team would be more comfortable taking Lance because of the fact that they know that he can learn behind a guy like Matt Ryan.
Yeah. Only thing I want to preface too is like if they do get a quarterback, hey, week 8 or I think week eight's trade. I'm not sure if it's 17 games now. But week 8 or 9 trade deadline. Man, we're 2-6. We're 2-5. I think if I was the Falcons, especially if you do get a quarterback, then you can say, okay, shop Matt Ryan, maybe shop Julio. Let's give this guy that we just drafted in the first round his 8 weeks to see what he's got. Kind of like what similar to what the Eagles kind of did with Jalen Hurts. See what you got and at least get an asset from Matt Ryan because I'm assuming, and I don't want to jinx anybody, but it's probably going to happen. It's the NFL. A quarterback may be injured or a team may not, their quarterback's room may not be as good. Like you mentioned, like a Washington, maybe they don't get a quarterback and all of a sudden they're sitting there like 4-4 and they're like, man, we're a quarterback away from being good. Hey, we'll take Matt Ryan, we'll give you a second or third. And then, so it could be beneficial for the Falcons that way. Maybe that's their plan, is to get is so maybe that's why that they're fine sitting there. But yeah, I agree with you. Atlanta needs a lot, so any trade back that's giving you more assets, I would go for it. So yeah.
And I,
Anyways,
I would add too, Um, oh man, I blanked on. Oh, sorry. If they do trade Matt Ryan, or they're looking to potentially, if they get a quarterback and move on, I mean, look what the Lions just got for Matthew Stafford. Like, that's a lot of assets to help you rebuild your team. Obviously, Matt Ryan, he's 2 years older than Stafford, so you're not going to get quite the same package. Also, I don't think he's as good as Stafford at this point in their careers. But I mean, I think you can get a first out of Matt Ryan, and that's big time for building around your now future quarterback and whoever you take. So yeah, I mean, the more I talk about it, the more I could sell myself on the Falcons taking QB. But ultimately, like I said, it just depends on what their plan is with Matt Ryan. He's 35 years old. I assume that they're going to start to look to move him in the next few years. It just depends on how sold are you on the future quarterback classes, and that just takes future, planning and foresight from the Falcons.
Yeah, and sorry, one last point too. There's been so much smoke around they're going to move Matt Ryan that there has to be some legitimacy to that.
Right.
So yeah, I would agree with you. But anyways, Lions number 7. That's where Jamar Chase comes off, which I mean I wouldn't be surprised. I agree with that. Lions need a wide receiver. Apparently, their top 2 on the depth chart are Tyrell Williams and Rashad Perriman, who were just signed. So I would imagine Lions can really do anything there, and that was how I'm not surprised that they're in talks to trade back as well, because it's kind of similar to the Falcons, except they need more assets. But unlike the Falcons, they've already accepted that they're just rebuilding. So 8's where it gets interesting. He has the Devontae Smith, wide receiver from Alabama, going to the Panthers. See that I don't see. I think you need to go offensive line or add defense. You already have DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson. You have Christian McCaffrey. I mean, here if Pitts is here too, that would be great because they could add a tight end to that offense. Also, defensive end, just add a guy opposite of Brian Burns and Derek Brown. Just adds that great defense, or maybe even corner. This is where Patrick Surtain, or maybe if they feel comfortable, Caleb Farley could go. So I wouldn't go wide receiver. That's another one I disagree with Mel on at 8 for the Panthers. What about you?
The Panthers to me are sort of like the Lions in the fact that honestly, I could see them taking any position except for maybe quarterback. Both teams, I mean, they have Jared Goff, they have Sam Darnold. It seems like both teams, they just got him. They're going to give him probably at least a year before they look to do anything different there. But anything else could be on the board. I mean, if Kyle Pitts is there, I could see either team. Well, maybe not the Lions because they have Hawkinson, but I could see the Panthers 100% taking him. If he is there, I would honestly say they should take him. Um, but I agree with you. I'm not just with the team that they do have. I really like Joe Brady as their offensive coordinator. I like Robbie Anderson. I like DJ Moore. I think they're both talented. And although my Cowboys did it, I don't think it's always the smartest move to try and go out and get like 3 starting, quality receivers that you feel comfortable putting on the outside. Um, and so I think that you can invest a lot less in whoever that third receiver is going to be. And like you said, invest in offensive tackle because now you're protecting Sam Darnold. Their offensive line has never really been that great. Even when Cam Newton was there, they were pretty horrible. And they've invested a little bit, with the trade of Trey Turner. They got Russell Okung, but even him, he didn't necessarily have an amazing season for the Panthers. So I think offensive line personally is the way that I would want to see them go, assuming Kyle Pitts isn't there. But I agree with you. Defense, I mean, they could use realistically anything. They could use another linebacker. So maybe they want to take a Micah Parsons or the guy out of Notre Dame. I can't remember how to say his name.
I know who you're talking about.
Nwosu or something like that. Um, a corner, I think they could 100% take corner. I mean, they obviously have some solid guys in that secondary. They're all very young, but it doesn't feel like they have like one true corner that you're necessarily like, this guy's our true number one. I mean, Dante Jackson, he's solid, but I wouldn't be surprised if they went out and got another one. Even pass rusher, like you said, it's an option. And we know that Matt Rule loves defense because last draft, that's all they drafted. So part of me does think that they'll probably go offense for the simple fact of how heavily they invested in defense last year. Um, but I think that outside of pretty much running back because of McCaffrey, receivers probably their strongest position on that offense.
Yeah, I would agree. So we'll see what they do there. But speaking of Micah Parsons, that's who Mel Kiper has at 9. once again, that doesn't surprise me. I'm forgetting the coach's name. Denver's coach, Vic Fangio. I know Fangs. I thought he would get. I remember when his first year in Denver, I thought he was going to get Devin Bush, but he ended up trading out and giving that pick to Pittsburgh, who then got Devin Bush. Granted, they got Noah Fant, but I wouldn't be surprised there because I've been waiting. That's for his dominant linebacker, which it seems like is the only piece he's really missing in that defense that he's had in his previous defenses. And the Bears, he had Roquan, and I'm forgetting his name, Danny Trevathan. And then in San Francisco, obviously he had why am I blanking on Patrick Willis and what's the other one?
LeVar Bowman.
Bowman. Thank you. I don't know why I'm blanking on that. So yeah, I don't know about you, but I don't see any issue there. And then yeah,
I mean, I agree. I think the only thing that could throw a wrench in there is if they want to go quarterback, which is a lot of these teams in the top 10. They could go QB if they want. I think they give Drew Lock another year with everybody fully healthy. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Linebacker, especially on that defense, feels like the most obvious position. Maybe a corner though. Surtain, Farley, J.C. Horn, one of those guys. I would also not be surprised.
but I know they brought in his
They brought in
Fuller,
Kyle
and
Fuller.
and they also signed Darby. So I feel like
They did sign Darby.
so they may not be as heavily.
But I think Fuller's on a 1-year deal, maybe 2. I might be.
forget.
I think it's actually 2. Like I said, I think Micah Parsons is probably the best fit, but I wouldn't be surprised corner. I mean, we've seen Denver. I mean, when they drafted Bradley Roby, they already had Aqib Talib. They already had. Why now? I'm blanking on his name. Their corner, who's
Charles
really great.
Chris Harris.
Chris Harris.
Chris
Yeah,
Harris
I knew it was
Jr.
Harris. I mean, they already had 2, elite level corners, and they went out and got Bradley Roby. So, I wouldn't say the additions they made necessarily are keeping them from getting a corner. But I agree, Parsons, I think best fit there. I will be interested to see where he goes though, because apparently there have been some character issues that teams are not fans of.
Yeah, so we'll see. I mean, that's something that you and I won't know about. Have no insight on. And then 10 is where they have another trade. He has your Dallas Cowboys giving that pick to the Patriots. And Patriots get Justin Fields. Personally, they signed Cam Newton. I just don't think that the Patriots would spend this high of a pick on a quarterback that they expect to sit first year. I know. I mean, the offense will already be kind of built for Fields if Cam doesn't work out. They did get a bunch of receivers, or they'll probably get an offensive tackle, but honestly, I have no clue. I mean, I wouldn't take a quarterback if I was sitting in New England's position if I had at 10, if I got to 10. But it's New England. It's Bill Belichick. I'm not going to sit here and doubt them. And I mean, they could. It's not like we mentioned with Carolina and the Lions, where they just got a new quarterback, and they still need to give him a full year. But I expect still New England to give Cam the full year. Give him now that he's going to have a full offseason in that system and training camp. I just don't think that they'll go quarterback. Especially, I don't think they'll trade up for one when they are a team that loves to have good depth all around. But any quick thoughts in regards to the Fields, New England trading up to 10 with your Cowboys and then getting Justin Fields that Kiper predicts?
I feel like if New England's going to trade up, they would trade up probably higher if they're going to get a quarterback. I just don't think you'd want to let some of these other teams potentially get ahead of you. Obviously, on draft day, it could be totally different because all of a sudden it gets that spot and maybe you feel like something else is about to happen, and so you go ahead and make the call and you make the deal on in the moment. So anything could happen. New England wouldn't be shocked, but sort of agree with you. It feels like with Cam and just the way that Bill Belichick always works, I don't know. It doesn't feel like they're going to go quarterback, but they could always shock us. The one thing I will say is with the Cowboys, I don't feel like they trade back for the simple fact that they have 10 picks this year, and it feels like they should be in win now mode. Obviously last year they did not perform at that level, but with everybody fully healthy and going back to the old defensive scheme and some additions, it feels like they should be competing for the playoffs. And they are, like I said, they already have 10 draft picks. So it seems like, which I don't want this to happen, but if anything, Jerry's going to trade up. Realistically, I think they just stay put and they take best defensive player they can get at that spot, because although Jerry kind of gets overblown, all this, all the dramatic stuff that he does. Um, the Cowboys typically, I mean, they build their team through the draft and they're really solid at it. And it's actually pretty rare that they trade. I think the last time they traded up was when they got Morris Claiborne. The last time they traded down was when they got Travis Frederick. So they haven't really made a whole lot of movement in that first round for quite a bit. So yeah, realistically, I think they'd probably just stay put. But I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, we'll talk about later why I would not like it, but I wouldn't be opposed to getting more assets.
Yeah. So, all right, just gonna continue to hit the highlights. Mel has Giants taking a wide receiver, um, Jalen Waddle, which I mean I could see no anything crazy there. Eagles
Not surprised.
at 12 taking Patrick Surtain, which I know would sting for you, but that is a need with Darius Slay, getting older. They need a lot of help on defense. They're rebuilding. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if that's more of a Caleb Farley spot. Once again, their window's not really next year or two. Take a chance on Farley. Let him sit. Let him take his time, especially coming off that back. You can monitor it. But yeah. So Surtain there, that corner. No
The
surprise.
only thing I'll say about Philly too is I would be interested to see if they go receiver because I mean we've talked about the receiver room
Yeah.
for the last however many years, so I wouldn't be surprised if they went there.
Once again, though, similar to the Falcons, I feel like it's tough to go back to back years, especially because then
True.
it's like, oh man, like they must not have confidence in their guy last year. Which I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but we've seen like we saw in Jacksonville. We mentioned multiple times. We've seen GMs let their pride get the better of them. So, and that's
Which I mean, I don't have a lot of faith in Howie Roseman at this point. I mean, there was a report that came out today that him and the owner basically bullied Peterson out of the job because they were just like blaming him for everything and treating him like a child.
yeah,
Which, if that's true, Doug Peterson, you did not deserve that. I mean, you're a Super Bowl winning coach, so that's kind of ridiculous. Um, but yeah, I mean, just based on their recent draft moves, the Phillies just weird, man. They're
yeah.
weird.
But anyway, so the Chargers get tackle Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern, which well we agree with the need. I feel like we both would go Darisaw personally, but
Yep.
hey. And then 14, the Vikings, he has Darisaw. So maybe that's where, once again, a Slater might go instead. Play guard his first year or so. Um, and then Dallas, because of the trade, they get J.C. Horn, cornerback, who I know you liked. I wasn't that big on, but yeah. So I guess you wouldn't have any complaints if that happened, especially if you get more assets. Um,
Um, Obviously, I'd prefer Sertan. And like I said, Dallas is sort of in a win now mode, so it feels like Sertan would be the best option because it feels like he's the most like NFL ready when it comes to health and everything. Um, I've heard a lot of people linking the Cowboys to J.C. Horn. I don't know if that's based on anything coming from the organization. Typically, they don't release anything like that. Um, so I don't know. I'd be happy with just the fact that we took defense because Jerry is the kind of person that loves to, just go and get offense. Um, so I'd be happy with the fact that we took defense, and I do like J.C. Horn. I would be bummed that we didn't get Sertan, especially since he went to Philly in this situation. But I wouldn't be too bad because, like I said, we got defense, we got a position of need, and it's a guy who I do like.
all right. So we're just going to hit in the highlights. Going on 24, that's where so Steelers are at 24, so a little bit later than I thought initially, and Mel has Najee Harris going to them, so that's the first round running back.
Wait. Are we skipping
I'm just
all
skipping
the?
ahead because there's some
Okay,
guys that we kind of mentioned, but time and not really
gotcha.
shockers. Um,
Right.
I mean Jackson and then Terrace Marshall
You
Jr.
just
to
want to
the
You just want to
Ravens.
read them off because I know, like I said, I don't have the
Okay,
thing, so I'm
sorry.
actually interested to hear
I
who they are. You can just
okay.
we don't have to talk about them,
So
but
Caleb Farley went 16 to the Cardinals. That would be great for the Cardinals.
yeah,
Las
Michigan
Vegas
corner.
getting Elijah Vera Tucker. Good for them because they need to reload that line. Quiddy Pay, our guy, to the Dolphins at 18. Um, I see the fit. I can actually see that working out too. Anyway, Washington football team going Jeremiah Owosu Koromoa, that linebacker you're talking about. Could see that too. I mean, that defense is already pretty good. um, Bears getting a tackle, which I've seen a lot. I would agree that is a need. But they get Tevin Jenkins at 20. I already like this pick. Jalen Phillips, defensive end, Miami to the Colts. That's a good gamble for the Colts. I could also see them
Yeah.
going tackle. That's where I could. Or that's probably the earliest I could see a Walker Little going. Is if the Colts feel really comfortable and say, "Man, we just lost a tackle. Let's make this line even better and let's get this guy." That could be scary. Tennessee Titans get Elijah Moore, wide receiver from Ole Miss,
My
your
guy.
guy, and they do need to replace Corey Davis after losing him. Jets get cornerback Greg Newsome out of Northwestern, who I wasn't really high on, but he might be a scheme fit. And like I just mentioned, Najee Harris running back to Steelers, who I could see, but I would go Landon Dickerson since he's still available. Jacksonville gets Trevon Moehrig, the safety from TCU.
Oh, I want him bad in Dallas in the second round, so that'd
Yeah,
be
I just feel like
painful if he went in the first.
safety is so deep from what I've heard. That's why I haven't even looked at them, and I'm not planning on. It's just that I wouldn't take one in the first this year.
I actually hadn't heard anybody saying any would go in the first outside
Yeah,
of
it's
this.
just because it's a deep class.
Yeah.
Um, Jamin Davis, linebacker, Kentucky, who I'm not really high on, but just others are high on. Anyway, to the Browns at 26, they do need a linebacker and need a difference maker for that Seattle scheme. Uh, Baltimore Ravens get Terrace Marshall, wide receiver from LSU, which no surprise. We've been talking about getting Lamar more weapons. I feel like everybody has, not just us. Saints. I mean, I have no issues with Zayvon Collins, edge guy from Tulsa. I didn't really watch him much, but I'm not sure if he's worth a first round pick. But I don't know. The Saints. I feel like the Saints would be better off getting another weapon there,
Yeah.
like Kadarius Toney.
I can
But
see it.
anyway, then as my Packers getting Rashad Bateman, which personally I'm not high on Rashad Bateman. I'd rather get a Rondale Moore or once
I
again
agree.
Kadarius Toney. Bills get edge guy, your boy Aziz Ojulari, which the Bills do need difference maker on defense. Also speaking of
He would
difference,
be interesting there.
and then my guy right after him. Imagine the Chiefs getting this guy, Jason Owe from Penn State. Oof. Him, Frank Clark, and
Please
and
no.
and uh, and Chris Jones. That'd be a nasty combo. And then the Tampa Bay Bucks. Not really sure about this one. Getting another defensive lineman, Christian Barrymore, really good, solid defensive tackle. Maybe just insurance because there was a drop off when Vita Vea got injured last year, and he's been injured throughout his career. So maybe just rotational guy
Also,
slash insurance.
I mean, Sue's pretty old, so
Yeah, so he's still playing. I think they signed him 2 years, but yeah. So I mean that could also be there too. So that's that. That's Mel's first round. Really, only the shockers kind of in the top half, I would say. But I feel like that's what it is for most people, just because everyone's been talking about the top half of the draft
right.
for 2 months. So, anyways, any last impressions or statements regarding Mel or anything we've been talking about today?
No, I mean, I think it's one of the more realistic drafts I've seen. I mean, there was like I said, a few pieces in there where I maybe disagreed on the guy that they took, but ultimately a lot of teams like the Chargers, for example, we disagreed on the tackle they took, but we agreed with the need. And then only really a few spots that I was like, I just don't see that happening.
Not as bad
When it
as,
comes to
and I don't mean to call them out, but the Bleacher Report one, they had Caleb Farley falling to us at 29. Which, listen, if Caleb Farley falls to us at 29, I'm doing cartwheels out my apartment because, man, him and Jair, like that's an amazing. But I do not foresee him unless something crazy happens. Unless say Laramie Tunsil situation happens on top of his back issues, but I just don't see him falling to us. But I mean, I've been wrong before, and who knows what these NFL teams know? So I could easily have egg on my face come post draft time. But was it we're about almost 2 weeks from the draft, so man, maybe we'll see. Maybe next week we do our on and off mock draft, and then we do our own solos next week. We'll see. That's what we'll probably do. But again, in the nitty gritty, get into that time. It's an exciting time, draft time, and then we hit that lull. But anyways, that'll wrap it up for this week's episode. And per usual, you can give us any sort of feedback, wherever you're watching on YouTube. Rate, comment, subscribe. Same thing if you're listening on podcast, and then you can always interact with us via our socials, which is Twitter at Shut Up and Ball Pod, Facebook page is just Shut Up and Ball, and Twitter is at Shut Up and Ball. But otherwise, hope everyone has a great week. We will be back later this week with some NBA, other NBA episode, and then obviously next week we'll be doing we'll be back with football. So get through the work week, everybody. Enjoy it, and see you later.